was never really good playing role of the puppet. Too busy being me, to be concerned with perception of the public. Everyone is buzzing, but everybody ain't thinking about a budget. I want ownership in something. Niggas get
the Cheyenne Nation, who possesses unparalleled technological prowess. Being able to intuitively understand and design technology, he is a master inventor and engineer known as the Maker. His affinity for technology diverged from his connection to his heritage, eventually leading him to join the U.S. Army. While serving, Forge sustained severe injuries after being close to a bomb detonation, which caused the partial loss of his right leg and hand. Using his powers, he has built cybernetic prosthetics to replace his missing limbs. After this tragedy, Forge became a recluse, focusing on his work as an advanced weaponry developer for the U.S. government. During one of his assignments, he replicated a neutralizer that can inhibit a mutant's powers. His creation was used to depower Storm, the leader of the mutant heroes known as the X-Men. Following this accident, Forge's journey has permanently intersected with the X-Men, in addition to a complicated relationship with Storm. In a major crisis, a demonic entity called the Adversary threatened the world. In the past, Forge had inadvertently released the creature during his time in the army. Thanks to the sacrifice of the X-Men, Forge was able to reconnect himself with his origins to banish the beast. This was followed by him devoting his efforts to revive and assist the X-Men. Eventually, Forge re-established his involvement with the government by serving as a liaison for X-Factor, subsequently becoming the leader of the team. Throughout the years, Forge used his mind to collaborate with mutant kind. In a desperate attempt after the mutant decimation, Forge went insane and attempted to recreate mutant kind by himself. After clashing with the X-Men, he was helped by Cable and joined his extremist band of vigilantes in X-Force. For the establishment of the mutant-exclusive island nation of Krakovan by Professor X, Forge played a central role in the development of mutant technology. He devised backups for mutant minds to be stored in Cerebro to enable the resurrection protocols. Additionally, he showcased his ingenuity by crafting organic technology derived from the island itself. His expertise led him to work closely with the Quiet Council of Krakoa and eventually join the ranks of the X-Men, where his unique abilities proved invaluable to the team. Forge served in the Seong Kong War and lost his right hand and right leg in a B-52 attack. During the war, Forge, using the souls of 9 dead comrades, had opened a portal that released the Adversary to win a battle. Forge sank into a suicidal depression and tried to kill himself. Forge designed an artificial hand and leg to replace those that he had lost and, for reasons connected with the war that had not yet been made clear, Forge decided to give up the use of his ability to wield magic. For the most part, Forge did not use his mystical abilities for at least 10 years. Forge concentrated instead on his career as an inventor. When Tony Stark ceased making advanced weaponry for the federal government, the Defense Department began commissioning new weaponry from Forge via the DARPA agency. One of his main contacts at the agency and a good friend was Deputy Director Raven Darkholme, with Forge having no idea she was Mystique in disguise. The government commissioned Forge to devise a means of detecting and combating the shape-changing alien dire wraiths. Forge created a scanner device that could detect the presence of superhumanly powerful mutants and extraterrestrials in its wielder's vicinity, and could even specifically differentiate between dire wraiths and other aliens. Forge also created a neutralizer device that could theoretically deprive any superhumanly powerful being the ability to use his or her superhuman abilities. On presidential orders, Henry Girich, an agent of the National Security Council, took possession of the only existing model of Forge's neutralizer to use it against Rogue, a member of the Mutant X-Men who was falsely suspected of killing an agent of the intelligence organization S.H.I.E.L.D. Forge was outraged, as the neutralizer was still untested, and he did not know if it would remove a target's superhuman powers temporarily, permanently, or possibly even kill him or her. Forge physically attempted to prevent Girich from using the device on Rogue, but Girich instead shot Rogue's fellow X-Man Storm with it, as she attempted to protect her colleague. With her superhuman powers entirely removed, Storm fell into a river, from which Forge rescued her. Feeling responsible for the loss of her powers, Forge brought Storm to his Eagle Plaza in Dallas, Texas. There, Storm revived, and she and Forge grew strongly attached to each other. However, when Storm learned that Forge had designed the neutralizer gun that had deprived her of her powers, she felt betrayed and furious at Forge. Storm left his building but returned on learning Forge was in danger from the dire wraiths. The wraiths were aware that Forge's neutralizer could not, in its present stage of development, and intended to kill him before he could improve it. Naze, Magic, and Amanda Sefton joined with Forge, Storm, and the X-Men in defeating the wraiths who came after Forge, but Storm's hatred of Forge persisted. Naze faked his demise at the barbed tongue of a dire wraith, letting it assume his identity, and then fell under the mental control of the adversary, sparing Naze from this fate. Forge longed for Storm, going so far as to create holograms of her in his Eagle Plaza. Forge further improved his neutralizer so that it would negate the wraith's mystical abilities, and created several of these improved devices, but he was still guilt-ridden over Storm's loss of her powers. Fearing that people would use his neutralizers against other superhuman Earth beings, Forge did not want to give them the devices even for use against the dire wraiths. After joining forces with the wraith's greatest foe, the Space Knight Rom, to battle the wraiths in Dallas, Forge decided to construct a gigantic neo-neutralizer in Earth's orbit. Powered by Rom's own neutralizer, Forge's orbiting device could cast all the dire wraiths on Earth into other-dimensional limbo. Jirich intended to use the neo-neutralizer to eliminate the superhuman powers of every being on Earth. To thwart Jirich's plan, Forge and Rom aimed the neo-neutralizer, not at Earth, but at the Wraith's homeworld, Wraith World, which was approaching Earth through hyperspace. The device negated Wraith World's magic, the source of the Wraith's own mystical powers, therefore causing Wraith World to cease to exist and depriving Wraiths throughout the universe of their mystical abilities. Thus, Forge was responsible for saving Earth from the dire wraiths. Forge ensured that the neo-neutralizer could not be used against Earth's superhuman beings and destroyed all known specimens of the neutralizer. One neutralizer was used by Tony Stark to depower the superhuman criminal known as the Termite and was subsequently destroyed. Forge was next seen atop a mountain, seemingly opening a dimensional portal filled with demons. Storm, who had been manipulated by the adversary in Naze's guise, stabbed Forge in the chest and, only then, realized he had been attempting to close the portal, not open it. The adversary then trapped Forge and Storm in the other dimension and seized control of Dallas, warping time and space in order to foment chaos on Earth. Forge and Aurora Munro spent a year on an alternate Earth, in which they made peace and admitted their love for one another. After a fight, Aurora left and, upon returning, Forge used components from his cybernetic leg to fashion a new device that restored Storm's ability to use her powers, which she then used to energize a portal back to their own world. Forge and Storm rejoined the X-Men and were captured in the omniversal guardian Roma's Starlight Citadel, which the adversary had taken over. Forge was forced to use his mystical abilities again to banish the adversary, using the souls of 8 X-Men and Madeline Pryor Summers. However, Roma restored the X-Men to life and freed the adversary under the notion that there could be no order without chaos. Forge was later sought out by one of the X-Men's younger siblings, Magic, in her Darkchild form, seeking revenge for her slain brother. After a lengthy battle, Darkchild teleported Forge to her dimension, Limbo, where she was more powerful, and Forge eventually decided that he was no better than her as a youth, and gave up. After being stabbed by Darkchild's soul sword and influenced by the New Mutants, Darkchild understood how evil she was becoming and withdrew her attack, returning Forge to Dallas and restoring his health. Forge returned with the X-Men to completely restore their mansion to their previous level of technology. Forge proposed to Storm, but when she would not leave the X-Men for him, he retracted his offer. He returned to Dallas with Mystique, taking it upon himself and fulfill Destiny's dying prophecy to rehabilitate her as she was suffering from psychological damage after being possessed by the Shadow King. Forge and Mystique were attacked by the time-hopping mutant Trevor Fitzroy and were rescued by the X-Men. Mystique left Forge soon afterward, claiming her sufferings were a ruse to enable her to steal sensitive information from Forge's computers. Forge was then contacted by Valerie Cooper to become the government liaison to a new version of the mutant team X-Factor, modeled after the defunct government-sanctioned Freedom Force. Forge soon became an active team member, participating in many missions and supplying the team with its technology. During this time, he was reunited with Mystique and also fixed a holographic module that contained the mutant law enforcer from the future, Shard.